When we create a reporting table, then it has columns and rows. After all, it's a table. And in these columns and rows, which would you prefer the columns and the rows to be? Would you prefer the columns to be the list of metrics? Let's say that we have 20 metrics, like sum of users, sum of requests, sum of clicks, sum of total revenue, etc., etc. And this could be either the columns or the rows, and the other dimension would be the month. So sum of clicks per month, January, February, March, April, sum of total revenue per January, February. So I would prefer the columns to be the months, January, February, March, April, May, June, etc. And I would prefer then the rows to be the metrics, because then in this way I can add more and more metrics to the rows, while the math stay constant. And in a single screen, this would fit my screen well, such that if I have 100 metrics, I could scroll down, look at all the metrics, and I would simply see them all one by one by month. This just makes more sense, and this is how most reporting are built with. So in SQL, the thing is that if we run a standard SQL with the group by in order to get these totals of the metrics, then when we use the group by, then what we would get is we would do a group by month and then a sum of all the metrics, and we would get a row for each month, and the columns would be the metrics. Why would it be like this? Because the select statement was the select for all the metrics, and each thing that we put in the select is resulting with another column. This is how select works. And the group by would result in different rows. This is where the pivot could save us time. We could do this manually in SQL, but of course you could say that your reporting system is able to transform it, but we also want to directly get this result so that we can iterate upon the SQL and see the exact results. Just like they are on the report. So we want to iterate on the SQL, see the exact results as they would appear on the report with the columns of the months and the rows of the metrics. So the pivot statements will help us with this. The pivot statement comes in after the form. So we have select, list of columns, from which table, and then pivot. The pivot would receive a few parameters. So again, we have select, multiple columns that we put to the select, then from which table, and then pivot. In the pivot, we say just pivot sum of the sales for month in January, February. So the in part, the last part, would limit the number of months that we want. Basically, we just supply to the pivot the aggregate function and a list of columns that we want to operate the aggregate, and that's it. We would get the month as the columns. It would transform it. We would get the month as the columns because we use the pivot. So again, it's a very nice SQL syntactic sugar where we do a select from a list of columns, then from which table, and then we do a pivoting based on columns. We say we want to pivot by the sum of the sales amount for months in January, February, March, April. And then we could select another columns that we want to pivot for, not only the sum of the sales amount, also the sum of the clicks, the sum of the number of users, the sum of the number of requests, the sum of the number of conversions, the average, and so forth. So this is the pivot. The concept is just to use it after the form. After we use a select for multiple columns, we say from which table, and we say, in the past we said group by something, right? Now, instead of group by, we use pivot, and we say pivot by these columns. but we also need to supply to the pivot which aggregations and which summaries we want to. So this was the how to use the pivot in order to get aggregations based on columns.